Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Abdallah, and I am a software developer and consultant in different type of project, mainly web application. So today I'm going to share with you one of my recent project, which I have already created a gist on how I've created a script to replace links from a directory to another link. So it's basically key value pair. We just iterate through the project and replace the links. So let me just give you an example of how you would do it, how you would get the input. So let's say we have header A, header B, and then we have, for example, link HTTPS. We have the first link and whoops, link A, for example, .com. Then we have HTTPS, link B.com. So here basically what happens is that we go around the directory and replace all the link from A to B. But there is a gist though, we can also actually for um, for performance I've added the choice that you can actually um, given that the subdirectories name are not the same, we can actually just loop the directories that we want to rather than everything, because we can also do that. But let's say you have node modules in your project, then it's going to be very complicated, especially for a big application. You are going to be having maybe over 100,000 of files, so this is going to take a lot of time. So since I've written it in Ruby, and even if you are going to be using Python, this is some stuff that takes a lot of time. It's better to actually do it in high performance language, or even do it directly in Bash. I had the idea to do it in Bash, but then I said no, let's improve my skills in the programming language that I'm using professionally. So let me start by sharing with you the script. So to begin with, I started by requiring CSV because we just take a CSV file. Right now it's an Excel spreadsheet. I'm actually using LibreOffice Calc, but if you save it, you just save it as CSV or export it as one. So let's begin. Here I'm using object oriented. It's not entirely similar like classic object oriented, or we call that like the single inheritance programming languages such as Java and C Sharp, but the idea is more or less the same. So let's begin. Here I just used conversion just as a name, and I use the initialize is just like a constructor. In other language, we call it initialize, and I pass the CSV file, the directory I want, and um, the ignore folders and the select folders. Alright. So here it's like you see, we are actually the script right now is I've run it on the same directory if I would have, but then you need to pass in the CSV file. Maybe I could have done something different and just pass, maybe calculate how to, maybe this is another scope of the project, the script. So here you pass the directory, and here actually the links should be in the same directory if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise you could have done something like, I'll show you in a bit of moment, just join the folders to get this one separately, and then this is the ignore files. Actually haven't implemented it in the first iteration of the script I did though, and then I found it to be much more smart to simply use this one. Alright, so let's just get started. The CSV file directory ignore folder is basically just assigning it from the parameters to attribute. And then, what is attribute reader? ATR reader, so this is a bit idiomatic of Ruby. It's some good practices. So instead of writing get set for links here, you can just use this. It's less verbose. It's symbol is it's just like you're writing this, and you write the symbol. So it's like a symbolic approach. And this in Ruby is actually a colon, and your variable, this means a symbol rather than a string or variable. So it's more or less the same thing, but it's actually a symbol in Ruby for a project, for a script, is immutable, and it's a bit global, so you can access it everywhere in theory, but it's not just like that. But let's say you have another mm, class in the same project, and you can use it from the other class into this one. So let's get started. First, let's follow what I did here. So we created a new version. You use a new keyword here and pass it, and then we convert conversion.getLinks. Let's go to this get links. So first we are just going to read the CSV, add the headers and output it. So it will this is going to be to put it to output it in a hash type, key value per hash, and in an arrow the links will just represent it's not going to be it's going to be an hash, an array, and the key would be like I just shown it to you. So this will be the key, this will be the value, this will be the key, the value in the same array. So you can just put the logic to replace it, like I will show you in a moment. Then we get list of all the files that we are interested with. So select folders. The select folders is the folders that we how it works actually. Just iterate through the folders, and in terms of the pattern, I'm just joining the directory. Like you remember, we put the current directory and the folder, and we are just going to take every file. So you could actually here it's you're recursively selecting joining every files in the directory, and here I think it's extension, but we are just taking everything. And here we are just dir glob. So I think it works like your I can't remember the bash command, but it's the same thing to get all the data file that we want, selecting this pattern. So actually the first time my first iteration was to just take everything and put it, and it didn't really work because I didn't, for example, ignore the node modules, and it became really heavy, and the script crashed a lot of times, every single time actually. So I'm just adding the file path here in the list instead of reading each and every file that is going, because we don't need every one of them, and if you're going to read everything, it's going to take a lot of time. But one thing that is important as well is it's easier. So in terms of performance, it's easier to read a file than to read it's less expensive to read a file than it is to write it. So let's continue. That's why I try to separate it to decrease as much as possible, to decrease the the expensive part. So we're going to filter the file. So first I iterate for the list of file. I check if it is directory. We don't want to do anything with directory. So if it's not a file, it's a directory. We just move on the next one in the list. It's just like continuing other programming language, like C sharp. Then we are going to read the content, and if it is it matches, we use include, for example here each. We are going to go for the each. You remember here we are going to go for each of them. They are unless you have hundreds of thousands, they are relatively inexpensive operations, and we are going to check this one. So you could do the other way. Instead, you loop in this link, and then for in each link, in each of the loop, you read the file. So in this case, it's going to be far more expensive in terms of IO operation. Here, what we are doing is we are limiting the number of files as little as possible, and then we iterate one time for each of these files, and then we iterate in the links, which is an array, and we just read the content with the content that we've read once, and we check if it's included the keys included, and if it is, we even further down the line we decrease it. So why I've done all this optimization is to reduce the number of files that we are concerned with. We don't want to be reading all sorts of files, and even the writing we want to do it in absolutely minimum. In this case we have no choice to loop it, but this is how we just we just filter by the files we want for the key. So we continue. Once we've done it, I've added another method for this object to print it. So right now I commented it out, so this helps us. This helped me to inspect what is happening. Inspect is just a method in Ruby. Everything is an object, so you just understand what's happening. And inspect give a little more details on if you're going to put it directly. So then we are going to modify the files itself. So it's very interesting. So first we just use a guard close to see if there is no included file. We don't do anything. There is no need to even loop it. So we loop it, we check, we again loop each links first, and we should actually do the contrary here. We loop for the included files, and then we actually should have loop for the included files first, then the link, and we read the file again, but this time we need to read it to be able to write it. Alright, and so we get the updated content, we read the content, gsub is just like replace a string. We want this value to be replaced with this value, the key value to be replaced, the key by the value, and then we are going to update. So update is simply a method. So we take the file, we put it UTF-8, otherwise the encoding is messed up. If you do that, your file might even be corrupted. So for me, what I did was to just check the encoding here when you open the files of the project or the directory, and if it's UTF-8, you just put it. So we put our famous begin and rescue clause, try and catch other languages. Open the file, we'll just write it, and once done, it's going to work. So there it is, and I'm going to post a gist for this, and I will link it hopefully on social media. So thank you. See you in the next video.